Let me bring in Aam Aadmi Party's Mr. Sharma. Mr. Sharma, you tell me now. In your party, you have gone, your police went to pick up Tajinder Singh Bagga, the Punjab police went to pick up Tajinder Singh Bagga because of defamatory comments against Arvind Kejriwal. And, wanted to sort of put non-bailable provisions against him. He may have said things which offended your leader. Does it justify criminalizing him?
Well, Rajdeep, we all have to understand that as an individual, the freedom of expression that we have, and once we become a public figure, we are expected to behave in a particular way. Off air, in my family, with my friends, the kind of languages I use, I cannot use the same language when I am on air and hundreds and thousands of people are seeing me. So the difference here is that an individual and an influencer are different. When there is an influencer, he has to abide by certain ethics. You cannot go on, anybody, including me, including you. In the same program, when one of the panelists asked you, you said that you challenged him saying that you have never used offensive language. That means that people who are in public or holding public offices, or in short, people who are influencers. For example, during the time that I am on this program on air, I am an influencer. Millions of people would be watching me. So I have to, it is my bounden duty, it is the ethics that calls for that I'll use language that doesn't instigate people. The moment I start instigating people, it is a call for action.
No, if it is incitement to violence, that's different. If someone incites violence, that is certainly punishable, prosecutable. But if you make statements that are seen as offensive to someone in public life, is that enough? And that's, Rajat Sethi, where I want to draw you in again. Because social media posts by their very nature, Facebook, Twitter, you have all kinds of offensive remarks being made. Do those remarks, just a minute, do those remarks, Rajat Sethi, constitute, in your view, criminal offense? That's the point that one is trying to make here. It is one thing to say statements against the prophet, but if I make an abusive statement about a politician, there's an equivalence being drawn.
See, the problem that, Rajiv, that most of these politicians and their followers have is this holier than the king, more loyal than the king syndrome. Now they all want to make it a point, prove a point before the leader that we are more loyal to you, and then they go all out. And I think here the key operative word is disproportional. Disproportional action by either the state administration to placate or please their political masters, or even for that matter, even the Assam police. What they did was absolutely meaningless, and it was quashed by the courts. I think somebody, a neutral arbiter, it could be the courts, who need to step in and say that these are the hard lines, hard red lines, where one cannot cross under no circumstance. Or we as a nation decide that France is the model. We go in for an absolute freedom of expression at that level, where, when Charlie Hebdo happened and numerous such related events were happening, it was Macron who came in and projected those cartoons on government buildings. That's the level of absolute free speech.
No, is that possible? No, 1 minute. Now, is that possible in a country like India? If I abuse someone's gods, or if I'm seen to denigrate God, what has happened in this case? You've got, in the case which started it off, this debate, Nupur Sharma was seen to have made derogatory remarks about the Prophet. Those who have now also had FIRs against them are seen to have made sarcastic comments or ridiculed the Shivling. Now, there's a difference between ridicule something and pass derogatory comments. For example, also in the Jignesh Mevani complaint in Assam, he was arrested by a BJP government in Assam. Why? Because he had said on Twitter, Modi worships and considers Nathuram Godse as God. Now, is that enough to send your police to go and arrest him? I'm saying, have we all lost a sense of proportion?
No, this is exactly what I'm saying, Rajdeep. This disproportionate actions which are coming in. More important cases are not getting adequate amount of state machinery's attention. And it is these frivolous things which are taking up the spotlight. The reason is this, that people, these followers, they are all throughout in this process that they want to please their masters. Let me tell you, barring a few such isolated cases where even the chief minister stepped in, the Assam chief minister stepped in and ensured that this gets squashed, because it was a meaningless FIR in the first place. Right. And the Assam police should not have done it.
So
but you go back to Mamata Banerjee and go back to Mahua Moitra. They are paraded as the beacons of liberalism and the beacons of free speech across all TV channels.
There's
1 minute, ma'am.
time on the show.
So?
1
When
minute,
their
Shobha.
party is systematically has been abusing freedom of speech, they've been systematically abusing citizens' free right to express. The reason is that there is a coterie which constantly wants to protect a section of politicians and want to go after the other. That kind of a balancing act should stop, and we as a nation, facilitated by neutral arbiters like the court, need to tell exactly where the red lines are, so that there is absolutely no gray area for politicians to play around with.